In this video, I'm going to be covering probably the question I get asked most is how much terrain that we should use in 40k. Now, terrain is one of those things that is really important. It's actually like the third part of the game. You've obviously got both players with both of their armies, and then you have the terrain, and that really creates what hopefully will be an incredibly immersive experience. If you have great looking terrain, it's really going to help you dive in and escape from exactly reality, which is why we play this game, and help really bring your models to life. So that's the first thing, in that it needs to be immersive, it needs to look great. But from a functional point of view, this is where terrain can really fall down. And if you haven't set up the game correctly with the right amount of terrain, either one of you is going to have a really easy game and the other person is going to have the worst game ever. Or it might mean that certain armies like gun lines can do really, really well. And if you use too much, then you might have the opposite problem where a combat army just runs supreme. So we want to make sure that not only is it immersive and looks great, but also it is functional. Now, what we mean by functional and balanced means that both players, no matter what army they play, are going to have a really good, fair game. Whether they go first or second, whether they run a gun line or a combat army, it's not going to matter. Both players need a really good chance of winning. And then finally, with terrain, it needs to be interesting. So we don't want to just use one type of terrain, we want to use multiple types. So I'm going to show you now in the next, hopefully, couple of minutes how to set up a game of 40k very, very quickly. And the thing I'm going to use the term a lot of is called symmetry. If we can have symmetry across the table, whether it's left to right or horizontally across the table or diagonally, whatever diagonal, horizontal or cross that you pick, use that as a symmetry line and then set up your table. So the first thing that we've got here is all these big ruins are exactly that. They are ruins, so they're going to give that obscuring. They're all over that 5 inches height. We've also then got these bases here that are difficult ground. That's going to impede movement to make it a little bit more interesting. And then also these watchtowers, by putting them on, makes it dense. So that's our dense version of trees in a city fight, which works quite well. So you can have these separate, you can add them on, it's totally up to you. And then we've got some cargo containers as well. And those cargo containers are going to be difficult to move over, slow people down, and also block some line of sight. So when we're talking about symmetry, the first thing that we want to do is select the biggest parts of the terrain pieces and have them nice and central to each other. We've got some scattered terrain, as you can see, these little rocks and pebbles. They're not going to have any function, they're just going to look great on the table to help blend the terrain in with the map. Then what we want to do is have small L shapes. See small L shapes in the corners, and then we're going to find the opposite L shape and put it in the opposite corner. And again, you can just use the scattered terrain around each one. We'll then do exactly the same on the other side, putting another L shape down in the corner with another L shape opposite. And what we've now got is a nice outlay. This nice larger piece works quite well in the middle, nice and central there. So I'm going to find the other piece and put that on the opposite side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use these dense pieces and we're going to put those to the edge, because again, you don't really want these dense pieces of terrain that give a -1 to hit in the middle, because it will affect gun lines too much, but having it on the edges isn't too bad. And then finally, these other pieces, these containers, you can either use them in pairs to make something a little bit taller, you can block off line of sight, you could put it in the middle to slow people down, or you could just scatter a few across the table, again in some sort of symmetry. And what you then need to do is look at it and think, okay, if I play across the table deployment zone, I've got places to hide, I've got places to shoot through, I've got, ruins that I can move into, and I can still have got firing lanes. If then you look from a different angle and we've actually placed these, this would be impossible. There's no firing lane, so actually these are a little bit too much. Maybe we want to put them at the back of a table a little bit more so they're less impactful potentially. And now all of a sudden, we've got some firing lanes if we play this way. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to find a PDF download of more terrain setups, you can check out the link below where we've got a blog post and it shows you exactly where we got all of this terrain from. Thank you to Foreground, and then also you can sort out your own table set at home.